Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And today, if you've ever wondered if you can actually 10 times your business by doing less, well, then you do not want to miss today's Author to Authority episode. I'd love to welcome Ryan Johnson to the show. He's the founder and CEO of Three Sparrows Executive Services. As a business coach, he helps small businesses empower their team members to grow from clock punchers to owners and 10 times their personal and business success. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks so much, Kim. It's a pleasure being here with you today.
So I guess the obvious question is, can you 10 times your business by doing less?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is an obvious question. And it sounds a little too good to be true, right? And that's I get that. But yes, you can. And there's a secret sauce to that I'd love to unpack. And so that's going to be fun to really reveal, how that can get done.
I love it. I love it. Ryan, why don't you take a minute or two and just introduce yourself and share a little bit of your story with us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I'll take a 30,000-foot view to my story, but I'll start with my first passion, baseball. So I was a baseball player growing up, just like everybody. I wanted to be a major leaguer. And so I was naive enough to think I'm going to get there someday. And I had a pretty good chance, but I stalled out in the independent professional leagues and played professionally for about 5 years after college, and then went right into my coaching career. I thought, I'm going to be a coach the rest of my life. This is great. But then the Lord had other plans and moved me away from that, but kept me in higher education and turned into a front end manager with the recruiting services that we offered at the colleges, and then moved into executive leadership, which broadened my horizons and brought me to where I am today with really wanting to help people with strategic leadership.
I love it. It's funny how we think we're going to end up doing one thing and we end up doing something we never even imagined. I mean, as a kid, I thought I was going to grow up to be either a teacher or a music teacher. That was my goal in life. And I actually did get to live that dream a little bit. I had married young, I had kids young, so I never went to university. But I did volunteer for 7 years in my kids' school, and I taught music.
Nice.
So I didn't get paid for it, but I did fulfill that one dream. But never in my wildest imagination when I was younger did I ever think I would become a publisher. Like, that was not anywhere in the Kim imagination of what the future would look like.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. Well, and living your dream is important. Going after what you really want to do will bring you energy in your life, and it did. And then I didn't have any regrets. And so now I can take the best of that journey and put it into the next phase of my life.
Yeah, you know what? When you say that, when I look back on, all the different things that I've done, I was just on a call with someone and he was talking about his life and how it seemed like his life went here, there, and kind of everywhere. And yet now, looking back on it, he saw how all of those, each one of those things brought something he needed in his life to bring him to where he's at now. And my story is kind of the same. Like, I felt like I was, kind of here, there, and everywhere. I've done a lot of different things. And, when I didn't start out to own a publishing company. I started out ghostwriting because my son was getting married and we had to replace 2 vehicles.
Necessity, yeah.
It was just to make money, right? Like,
right. Mm-hmm.
And then I fell in love with it. And so I love the fact that, sometimes the journey isn't what we expect, but when you get there and you look back, you realize each step was essential.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love that part of it too. You're exactly right. It's building blocks, and that's why experience and is so necessary. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes they can be totally unrelated fields, unrelated interests, and but you can bring out those core values that you learn and put them right into what you're doing. So that's absolutely right.
So Ryan, what would you say was the most difficult part of your journey?
Hmm. I like these questions. This is good. Yeah, great question. I think trying to be open to new things. When you get behind your passion, you really get pretty narrow-minded and tunneled vision. So with my pursuit of being a Major League Baseball player, or then eventually a Division I baseball coach, I wasn't open to anything else. Like I was just like, that's it, right? And to a point, you need to be that way if you have a goal. Um, but then when life, and in my case, the Lord wakes me up and says, no, there's something else that you're meant to do. It's really hard to pull away from that. And that was gut wrenching. I was like, this is who I am. I realized it wasn't who I was. It was just what I did. And so that was really hard for that year that he pulled me away from that. And I had to try to do something totally, not totally different, but different. That was the hardest part. And also, Rich, and okay, realizing I didn't make my ultimate goal. I made the goal of playing professionally, getting paid for it, and doing a lot of cool stuff with that. It wasn't the ultimate goal. So I think those two things together were really hard. Two tough pills to swallow.
Mm. Yeah, I've had a few times like that in my life where I didn't reach the full goal that I
Mhm.
wanted to. And, being able to accept that my self worth is not based on whether I reach that goal or not.
That's
There
right.
was a few times, I remember one time I was working towards a contest and I just needed one person who promised me they were going to place the order to place the order.
Mm,
And I would have wanted this big trip.
wow.
And they didn't place the order.
Mm.
I'm
Mm,
like, God, I worked so hard for
mhm,
this.
mm.
But you learn to accept these things, and it was hard on me, but I was like, yeah, okay, you know what? My self worth is not based on winning this contest, no matter how nice it would have been.
Yeah, that's right. It's a great point. It's something that we all need to keep in mind for sure.
Well, Ryan, we are going to take just a very quick ad break here. Audience, I have just released a new quiz. So if you've been thinking about writing a book for your business and using it to convert readers into clients and scale your business, then you're going to want to listen to this short ad. Welcome back. Ryan, I just loved how you have shared some of your stories and the good things and the disappointments. I just want to shift gears here because I want to get into, 10 times in your business by doing less. It seems so counterintuitive.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's unpack that for sure. So the secret sauce for me, for my, and you can probably guess where I'm going to go here because I was a baseball coach, right? And so as coaches, you empower people to be their best. You pull the best that they have out and empower them to go do it. You don't do it for them. You don't step in there and say, okay, well, you're not doing that great at hitting the ball. I'll just suit up as you today, and I'm going to go hit the ball for you. It just doesn't work that way, right? And it's illegal too. You
That's a
can't do
little
it.
illegal, isn't it?
Yeah, and so there's a lot of those solutions out there. There's a lot of those types of things. So when I talk about 10xing your business by doing less, I'm speaking to these two types of CEOs. Number one, the overwhelmed CEO that's trying to be the chief everything officer. And for a time, you have to do that, right? As a small business growing into a larger business, you have to make those tough choices. Say, you know what? I'm not going to have these expenses for a while. I'm going to take on as much as possible. I get it. The second CEO I'm talking to is the visionary CEO that rather rather go, walk off a cliff than have to sit in and do daily operations. Like they are so visionary. They are so visionary that they want to spend time on the vision, and maybe they're great presenters and they're just going to share the vision all the day long. But they understand, okay, to grow, I do have to have an operations foundation and executive leader. So how do I do that? I can't afford that person yet. So in both cases, as a fractional chief operations officer, I come in and bridge that executive leadership gap for them. And I do some things for them. It's a do it for them service. So I am kind of helping them, but at the same time, I'm not just jumping in doing everything they just did. I'm taking their
Yeah.
team and empowering their team to take more ownership, just like they do with the business. And then that allows them to step out of the daily operations and go do the things that they either love to do or really want to do or do best for the company to help it grow even more. I'm scaling, I'm setting the foundation for the company to scale. They're feeding the fire of the vision and maybe new customers and stuff like that, or maybe writing a book. If they feel like writing a book is going to help their business grow, then that gives them the time to do that. So it's all about empowerment and taking ownership.
Hmm. I've actually been reading some different books on 10xing your business.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things that is consistent throughout is you have to change how you think.
Yes.
You have to change how you think about yourself. You have to change how you think about your business. You have to change how you think about how much of everything you hold on to.
Mm,
And
absolutely.
I mean, I've been doing this. Well, I officially started the publishing company in 2016. Really started to take off in 2017. So let's just say the last 7 years, it has been a process of learning how to let go and not do everything myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Is that hard for you?
every time I do it, it's hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's things that have to be dealt with, but
Right.
eventually it becomes just this really amazing thing that allows me to do what I want to do, which is grow the company.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you and you and you can grow them if you're the fuel to the fire, right? If you're the one that has the biggest vision, and you ultimately will. I mean, you can get your team, your employees, and incentivize them and cast the vision and really treat them well so they're going to have a next level ownership of the company, but they're never going to have your ownership of the company because you
No.
started it and it's your baby, and we get that. And so if you're the fuel to that engine and providing all sorts of new customers and sales, you got to have a foundation to scale that, or else they're going to drown. And then everybody's going to be frustrated, and eventually, hopefully, the business doesn't fail, but that can certainly happen as well. If there's too much incoming growth and not enough foundation to scale that, that's when people get in trouble.
The one thing I found I've done is I usually will learn how to do it myself first
Mm-hmm.
because I am the CEO and I'm the one
Right.
who's building the business. But once I've learned how to do it, then I usually find someone else to take it on. And the thing is, I don't have to be the expert of it. I just need to know enough to make sure that anyone I bring on is doing the job that I need them to do. So I
That's right.
usually learn how to do it by doing it for a bit. I bring someone on, and then here's what I tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I do not have this down pat. The reason I'm bringing you on is because I don't have it down pat. I'm going to show you the way that I do it.
Mm-hmm.
You are free to change it to whatever you want, as long as A, it accomplishes what needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
and B, it's morally and ethically and legally allowed.
That's
Other than that, and if it's going to cost me money, you have to come to me if it's going to cost money.
right.
But if it's outside of those three things,
Mm-hmm.
change it and make it your own.
Yeah.
Do it the
That's a great
way
approach.
your genius allows you to do it, because
Mm-hmm.
it Doesn't need to be done my way, it just needs to be done.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So you're empowering them, and that's great for sure. Um, and uh, and I think in my case, the beauty of that is I'm the go between of the troubleshoot, right? And so
Mhm.
instead of them coming to you, they come to me, and that gives you even more time to do the things that you want and need to do to grow the company. So when you get a foundation set, and then you keep stoking the fire of incoming business, that's when you get that 10x. And I always tell people when I talk to them, would you like to add business, or would you like to multiply business? And that's the difference in bringing in strategic help, not just help. You can
Yes.
bring in more clock punchers, as I say, but that's not going to eliminate any more time for you. This is going to add more business and put more on your plate because there's more trouble, there's more
Yeah.
questions, there's more things to do, and so there needs to be an executive leadership level there that buffers them, or else they're going to stay in the weeds no matter what. So that's the difference of adding or multiplying their business.
I heard a term probably a couple of years ago, and it was called an employeepreneur. These are people who want to work a job but still have that entrepreneurial type spirit, and they take ownership within their jobs to help make the companies better. And I think,
Mhm.
many times those are the type of people that you kind of want to hire. I'm really thankful. I have a book project manager, and she is growing and learning in the job. And as she's growing and learning, she's taking on more of the responsibilities for, running all the behind the scenes stuff.
Mhm.
We just went through the process of, what does hiring look like? We had to bring on some more editors. So I just walked her through that process. And now it's like, okay, the next time you're going to do this mostly by yourself. I'm
Mhm.
there to help and support you, but ultimately her job will be the hiring of people. I will no longer be the one who does most of the hiring. I think there's certain positions that I will that are outside of her purview that I will hire, but
Yeah.
our writing, our editing team, our proofreaders, all of that will be her responsibility to hire
Mhm.
and hopefully never have to fire.
Right. Right. I think that's a great move, because the more you can trust your team to take on more of those leadership roles, those management roles, the more they're going to feel validated and trusted, and that they want to stick around for people like that. People that CEOs that empower their people, those are the ones that keep their people around a lot longer. And that's the other piece of the puzzle is employee retention. You want it to make it so hard for them to want to leave. And there's a lot of easy ways to do that people just don't take the time to do. And you're hitting it right on the head. You're empathetic to their goals, and you want to empower them to grow within your company, and hopefully they stay and they take more off your plate. It's a win-win situation.
I have two words that make all the difference and is so barely used in today's job world.
Mm,
Thank you. Like,
yes,
how often do you do something and no one ever says thank you to you?
right. Absolutely. Or even worse, you get, okay, now what? if especially if they hit a goal, right? If they hit a goal and they go, okay, great, but what's the next one? There's no celebration. There's no time to
Yeah.
celebrate. So yes, to say thank you just for doing their job. And some people say, well, it's their job. They shouldn't need to be thanked. Well, to a point, yes, you're correct. But it's that extra mile that goes a long ways to say, I see that this is your job, but I appreciate you doing your job and the way you do it too. But then, yes, to take it the extra mile and say, "Oh man, let's celebrate this goal." That
Mhm.
makes it fun, and then that's really hard to leave a fun environment like that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I want to, just before we shift gears again, I want to touch a little bit on the mindset bit of it, because I think that's one of the areas where, us as entrepreneurs really get stuck is shifting that mindset. I would love to have you talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah, for sure. So when you go on your own and try to replicate what you've done in the past under the umbrella of another employer, that it is a huge mindset shift to say, oh man, okay, I'm the one that does it all now. I'm the one that brings in the business and runs the business. And even for a solopreneur like myself, that's a big thing. That's a big weight that goes on your shoulders, but it's a good thing, because then you can really kind of have more empathy for the people that you work with that are also entrepreneurs, and even more empathy for my past leaders, that I worked with, to say, oh man, this was a big weight for them to carry. And even though you're in the C-suite position, you ultimately, the buck doesn't ultimately stop with you for everything. And so that is a big thing. So for me, really understanding that consistency and partnerships, alliances, those types of things, relationships have become so much more important now. They should have been before, and they were to a point, obviously, the people that you work with. But as far as partnership type of relationships, uh, growing your network, that type of thing, people want to work with people they trust and people that they care for, and rather than somebody you just met after a cold email, that type of thing. So it takes time. So the mindset shift comes in a couple different ways. Number one, that it's all on me, and then I have to create systems and processes to scale this thing and move it forward. And then number two, wow, if I'm going to develop relationships, it can't be one-sided. So it's got to be win-win situations. So those have been the two big things for me to really wrap my brain around. And it's really showed me the value of just people in general, because you can get to a level to where everything becomes transactional and not relational, and people can see that. And I think deep down we don't want to do that, but we often do, just because things are crazy. If have your own business and things are going a mile a minute or 100 miles a minute, and you just want to get to the next thing. But what's really going to make you grow are those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Let's also talk about it from the side of 10xing your business. So what is the biggest mindset hindrance you see, in CEOs and solopreneurs and people like that, to 10xing their business?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for steering me back to that. So strategic growth planning. And that when people hear strategic planning, they just unless they're an operations person, right? Or now some visionaries really love it because they can just dream and dream and dream. But then strategic planning gets a little crazy because that's all you're doing is dreaming. You're not actually setting a plan to execute. So to 10x your business, you have to have some sort of a strategic plan. I like to call it a strategic growth plan. Who are we, and who do we serve, and how are we going to do it, and where do we want to be? It's very, very simple. Now it takes time to do that. A solid day or day and a half for sure. Every year, and then revisit it every quarter, and then you're keeping on track every week to make sure you're making progress. That's been the biggest thing when I talk to other entrepreneurs, and just business leaders in general. How's the strategic planning going? They go, oh yeah, I need to do that. It's like, well, you're doing business right now. So what's your compass? Because that's what a strategic growth plan is a compass. And they're like, well, this is what we do. And so they have elements of it, but it's not succinct. It's not guided, and it's definitely not, you're not accountable to it. And so you kind of throw your hands up every quarter and go, well, we did better. I'm not sure how, but we did worse. Ooh, that's bad. I don't know how. So that's been the biggest thing for me, is to really make people understand how important that strategic growth planning is.
And I think too, as an entrepreneur, I mean, I know I've had to battle it constantly.
Mhm.
Is those squirrel moments, those shiny objects. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, oh, I gotta try that. Oh, I gotta try that. Oh, this guru said to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, I was on this teaching and training and they said to do that. And
Mhm.
it's like, wow, I get so easily distracted.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know
Yeah.
if you have it in the States, but in Canada we have something called craft dinner. It's basically macaroni and cheese in a box. So you
Okay.
get the macaroni noodles, you cook them, you add buttermilk, you add the cheese powder, you mix it
Yeah.
all up, you got mac and cheese.
Yep.
Okay, it's quick, it's easy. It's not the real thing, but kids love it and it makes a easy lunch, right?
Yeah.
There's this commercial where these two guys each have a bowl of craft dinner, call it KD. And, the one guy's trying to get the other guy's bowl because he really wants to eat all of it, right? So all of a sudden you see this little noodle and it just appears in these different places. And the guy gets distracted by these noodles. And the other guy manages to grab his bowl of KD and eat it because this other guy's distracted.
Yeah.
So in our house, we always called it, when things like that would happen, it was called the distracted noodle. You get distracted. You see something like, oh, I gotta have that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot in business too.
Oh my goodness, yes. That's a funny example, a great example. Yeah, and you want to be a lifelong learner. That's the hard part. So you can justify it yourself and say, "Well, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm doing my due diligence to learn." And yes, that is right. That's where it starts. And I've done it too, constantly because I'm a learner. I love reading and
Me too.
watching and learning um, and there is power to that, but there's a lot of confusion with that too. So that's where it has to be filtered through the strategic growth plan. Absolutely.
Yeah. Or if you need to change the plan, taking the time to change it properly.
That's right. Yeah. Setting
Yeah.
new goals, new milestones, new dashboard to measure those things. Yeah, strategic plans are dynamic in nature. They're not meant to be put in a 3-ring binder and set them on a shelf. That's the worst thing you can do with a plan. I love the cloud these days because that's where plans should be. They should be in the cloud. They should be accessible to everybody. Everybody should have the ability to raise their hand and say, "Hey, can we talk about this? This doesn't seem to be working, or we need to shift this, or I just found this resource that is a better tactic than the one we're using, but it's going to keep us true to the heart of this value that we have in this company." Those types of things. You're exactly right. They're made to be used, not just to be archived and pull out once a year for a board meeting.
Yeah. Ryan, we're going to shift gears here. We're almost at the end of the show. I know you're not an author, though you have done a lot of writing.
Mhm.
But you were telling me about this course that you did. So I'm going to I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all of the authors on the show,
Okay.
and but we're going to apply it to creating and using and getting this course out there. So, what was the good? First of all, tell us what the course is, and then what was the good, the bad, and ugly about creating and getting that thing out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the course, I've created the course, but it's really meant to go along with the boot camp. But for the sake of the conversation, it's the operations framework for business leaders, and it's a 3-step course, 12 weeks that really maps the personal development side out of leadership. Of young leaders that are in management and trying to really be their best so they can take ownership for the company, and then really shows them how to create plans, and then more importantly how to execute those plans. So that's the course, the operations framework for business leaders. And then I couple that with a 12-week boot camp where I'm actually stepping them through it. They watch it, and then we discuss it, and I hold them accountable to the assignments that are due every week. So that's what that is. So the process was a long time in the making. When I started the entrepreneurial journey, I knew, just because I read a lot of books and I take other courses, to be able to have a framework to be able to lead people. If I'm going to lead people, I need to have a framework that they can see tangibly that this is how this is going to work. So it brings credibility, just like a book does, to a thought leader or a business leader. And so I thought, I'm going to start with the course. I do want to write a book someday, but I'm going to start with the course and really coach the people through this process. And that'll be my journey for the book. So the process wasn't as hard as I thought. Getting the content, the hard part was organizing it in such a way where people could follow me with it, and really it would build on itself just like a book does. I have a couple outlines of a book. They just haven't formed, haven't really had the conviction to follow through just yet. But that's the biggest part of those outlines of the book, is really making sure you get the framework and then fill in your expertise as you go in a personal, connecting way. So it was hard to rein in my creativity and all my years of experience of operations and leadership and execution and say, oh, I've got all this information. It's going to be great. But as I was going through, I was like, no one's going to be able to follow me on this because it's everywhere. Like you get so much energy behind what you do, and all of a sudden it doesn't even make sense to you when you read it back. So that took a while to really hone that in. And then once you do that, then that's where the fun comes in, because then you're just letting your personality go. You're filling in the content. For me, it's a video course, so I got to just, be myself and present the content because I knew it so well, and it was organized in such a way it was so much easier just to let your talents and abilities take over. So it was a fun but very challenging process.
Ryan, thank you so very much. Just before we go, I'd love to give you an opportunity to share one final thought. And if people have enjoyed today's conversation, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Yeah, the as far as a final thought goes, I love letting people know, if you're going to grow your business, if you're going to 10x your business on doing less, you have to offer value first. You have to lead with value first. And that comes with how you treat your employees to get them motivated to take ownership like you want them to take ownership of the business, or if it's just trying to promote your book or that sort of thing. It's all about leading with value and developing those personal relationships. And with that being said, I'd love to connect with as many people as possible. They can find me at threesparrows.com, threesparrowses.com. But I've got a free gift for your listeners. We can put this in the show notes. If they go to threesparrowses.com/framework, then I've got a 3-step PDF there, how to scale your business past 10 million, 3 steps. It talks about the frameworks of my course. That's for free. They don't even have to give me an email. If they want to connect with me on a free strategy session, I'll do that also. So kind of a 2-for-1 gift there at threesparrowses.com/framework. And I'm on LinkedIn all the time, so would love to connect with them on LinkedIn, and they can find me through my website at threesparrowses.com.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Ryan, so much for being on the show today.
It was a pleasure, Kim. Thank you so much for having me.
Audience, what is next? If you've enjoyed this episode, I highly recommend that you go back to episode 468, How to Supercharge Your Revenue Growth with Jason Pearl. If you're on YouTube, you know the routine. My daughter has put the clickable thumbnail somewhere here on the screen. If you're on your favorite podcast app, you're going to scan back probably almost 10 episodes. And it'll be another wonderful topic that's going to help you take your business to the next level. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.